Alright, just a quick tutorial to look at how the ingester USD is working. Then once you load, there is many parameters. We're going to first add the name of the asset that we want to ingest. And then it's working in two separate parts. You got the material part and the geometry part. The first one is the geometry part. Then we add one geometry to the ingester. We already put a variant name. It's going to be useful for linked the geometry, the material after. You have different type of asset that the ingester can support. You got the Alembic, the FBX, and the object merge, like if you have PGO or geometry that you're working directly through DINI. There I already loaded my geometry. It's an Alembic file. I use the file path, which is going to represent my render view in Solaris, and the proxy path where I will put my proxy mesh. But in my case, I have no proxy mesh for this asset. Then I can enable the proxy generator, which is basically just going to create a polyreduce on my mesh. But it can be useful because often we don't provide the proxy meshes. And you can even control the polyreduce amount that you want to apply to this proxy file. Many things happen on the scene graph at the bottom of the software. There is a hierarchy that is built with geometry and material layer in one asset group. And in this geometry, you have the proxy and the render, and in it, you will have the different parts that you already set up for your mesh. For example, if you have like the roof and the window separate with a separated mesh, it will keep this hierarchy that you already built before. And this is the parameter that is named hierarchy asset because we decided to keep the old hierarchy. But now imagine that you are procedurally generating a mesh or an asset through Houdini, and that you plan to texturing it and shade it with procedural materials in Solaris. Maybe you do not need the hierarchy, and then you can just use the new hierarchy to like clean up a bit how the mesh is done. You have also post-process settings just to custom a bit more your ingesting if you want to like center the mesh in the origin, or if something is coming from Maya and you have to change the scale. That was kind of it for the geometry part. Now we can focus on the material ingesting part. Then first we have one geometry variant, which is the house 01. Then we just going to call this asset back on the material ingesting part. And on this geometry, we're going to link one material variant. And this one, you can call it whatever you want. There it's just house1 MTL. And if you go in the HDA, you will be directly on the material library, where you can, and there is the place where you can create the material that you want to link. Then there, just for the tutorial, I'm just going to apply a color on my house. And then I just have to drag and drop the proxy and the render, or even all the group geometry, because right there I just have one mesh. And there my color is already linked to my geometry. But now I want another material on my house, and to create this variant I just have to add a variant material right there. I call it with a different name. It just loads the geometry without the other material linked to it, because it's kind of processing a new ingesting. Then I just duplicate my material, change the color, and there you go. If I go and link again my primitive with my material. Now it's a blue one. And to check if the material variant are correctly linked, you can see that I have two groups created, one for the model, and we have only one geometry variant, which is linked with another groups of variant, the material one, and there you have the green one and the blue one. Then now I have one geometry with two variant material in one USD file. Now on this case, I just add another geometry variant. There it's a curtain, but there the difference is that I have different subset that is corresponding to different group. For the texturing, I have the front and the back of my curtain. Then I keep the old hierarchy because it was defined on a software that I used before. And now when I want to add the material to this curtain, I used to call them on a second geometry variant. And now I can link my material to this geometry variant. Then because I have different groups, I will take my primitive from the back, add a blue color, and now I can use different groups, take the front, and use the green color for the front. Then it means that you can have different group linked for the materials in different variants. And now you can see I have two geometry variants. There I'm looking at the curtain, and then on the material I was with only one materials. And when I'm loaded the houses, I have my two materials back. Once the ingesting is done, you can save the USD. And then if you check of the file that is saved, you have the full USD. After you have payload 1, and you got the geometry layers and the material layers. Basically, the payload is going to call the material and the geometry layers, and the general USD is going to call the payload. And then you can see that on the send graph tree, all the layers are correctly ingested and built as a USD hierarchy. If you need, you can also load an asset gallery directly through Solaris, and at the bottom of the HGA you can generate thumbnails, and directly is going to bridge the asset to the asset gallery. Let's take a look for the ingesting of the trees. The difference there is just that you have to separate the bark from the leaf, but it's working the same as before. But this time is just only supported by Alembic and FBX files. You also have the option of creating tree LOD. How it works is that it's going to delete some leaves and just polyreduce the bark. And for the leaf who are not deleted, you have the option to increase them. And of course, you have all the control on these parameters. And there on the material part, you have to do the same as before. It's supported with groups, which is important for different. Imagine you have different leaves on the trees. There you go. You can have different variants of leaves and color. I think we covered everything in the ingester. Hope it was not too much of information and enough clear. I'm not the best for this kind of tutorial. Then if something wasn't clear enough, feel free to reach me out. And is there a bug or something you don't understand? Go on. I will try my best to answer to your questions.